Well, welcome to On the Other Hand. I have been told that this is episode 10. We are hitting the ground running here, and we have a guest with us today. And I just want to introduce you real quickly to Codie Farrington. Cody and Sophie have joined our team at Church on the Rock at our North Campus, up at the Y there in the Talkeetna, Sunshine, Trapper Creek area. And in fact, this past Sunday was your first Sunday up there all by yourself. We did sort of the installment as the pastors and whatnot over the past couple of weeks, but we're glad that they're on the team. But Cody, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your family.
Yeah, lived in Alaska my entire life. I have 6 awesome kids. My oldest is 9. My youngest 2 are twins. They are 3. No, I take that back. Last Sunday, my oldest turned 10, my first week preaching.
That's
so a lot
right.
going on. So I think I'm forgiven a little bit for forgetting that she just had her birthday.
Yep. I totally get it.
My first real day of work, honestly.
Ever. Yeah.
Yes. My wife and I, our 11th anniversary is coming up in September, right around the corner. Yeah, we've been married 11 years. Seems like it was just a couple years ago I met her. I met my wife right back here behind the Wasilla campus, where Tyson, our awesome worship leader up north, lives now. It was where Nate and Lacey Steele ran the young adults group way back in 2009, 2010. That's when we were attending. And we met there, got married 9 months later. And I don't believe in long engagements.
Right.
We got married 9 months later and lived here in Wasilla, attended Church on the Rock, Wasilla for 5 years. I worked framing houses and all the wonderful weather that Wasilla has to offer, and moved down to Homer in 2015. Felt just really called by the Lord to go down there, so I could grow in my faith, really, and just pursue the Lord like I had never been able to before.
And so when you went to Homer, you specifically went to attend Alaska Bible Institute down there as students. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I got hurt at work. Actually, Kitchery prayed for me. That's a whole nother story.
I remember that.
And that was able to walk into the doctor's office after an MRI, and the doctor was like, "What are you doing walking?" It's like, miracles.
Yeah, it was really interesting. She just felt led that morning. We were sitting up front and saw you over there, and she had history and relationship, in particular with Sophie, but felt like the Lord was leading her to go and talk to you, pray for you, and pretty cool.
Yeah, that was really cool.
So then you guys headed to Homer, attended the Bible school down there. Give us a little bit of the history there.
Yeah, showed up in 2015 at Alaska Bible Institute. Attended classes for 2 years. Actually got 3 months in, got invited to be on staff there, and I was like, no, I don't think that that's a good idea. I want to just be a student, and I will help and I will serve in whatever ways that I can, but I just want to focus on being a student and growing in my relationship with the Lord, growing in my capacity as a husband and as a father. And that's what I want to focus on right now. And I really, my heart is to serve people and serve the Lord and His people. And so I jumped in all the time, probably more often than I should have, and just helped whatever needed to be done. And so I was did an internship program at Alaska Bible Institute the third year that I was there. Okay. It was actually the first year that they had interns, and then went on staff right after that, revamped and rebuilt the internship program in that first year that I was officially on staff there, and just had an amazing 6 years down there. Actually, you pulled me up here kicking and screaming, honestly, the whole time.
That's true. And you and I both know that community, the Homer community. Man, once you're experiencing that, it's hard to think of leaving or going somewhere else. And you're right. We had been pursuing you for a while, knew that it was in your heart to be in pastoral ministry, and specifically the Talkeetna area, which is where Sophie is from originally. Now, you were born in Anchorage?
I was born, don't tell anybody this, I was born in California.
Oh, no.
I was born in L.A.
Yeah, let's go ahead and wrap this interview up.
Yeah, so I was born in L.A., and we moved from L.A. to Valdez, Alaska when I was only 3 years old. It was right after my third birthday, actually, that we moved to Valdez. So I try not to make that public knowledge.
Yeah, well, too late now. So yeah, when this goes viral, you're in all kinds of trouble. Yeah.
10 episodes in, I haven't seen one go viral yet.
Yeah, me either. But hey, who knows? There's always this wild outside chance. So what I want to key in on, and I want you to know, we are currently, as a church, in a series just called Stand, or The Stand. We do this every year, and really what it's built around is this vision that Julia Bowles, our community development individual, had a dream for, and that is asking the question, as a church, how can we stand with families in crisis? How can we stand with children in crisis? How do we provide network circles of support for those family relationships? And what many people may not know is a significant piece of your story actually has to do with that exact theme, because you went into the foster care system here in the state of Alaska and actually grew up in foster care. And so can you tell us a little bit about that journey, that process here in the state?
Yeah. So I went into the foster system when I was right at the end of my freshman year of high school, actually, and moved from Valdez, which growing up, I never felt like it was a remote place in Alaska. Now I'm like, oh yeah, that's pretty far away. Went from Valdez to Kenny Lake, which is by Chitna, which is way off the beaten path. It's not, it's still on the road system, so you can still access it, but it's, far away and out of the way. But I just had an amazing high school years there. My foster parents were believers and just provided me the childhood experience of just being able to be a teen, not have to worry about things that kids shouldn't have to worry about, and have solid, healthy people in my life, in my circle, supporting me. And actually, our neighbors, they had a son my age. Our neighbors there in Kenny Lake, they had a son my age, and he became my best friend. And his family, just a super solid Christian family that I just fell in love with them, and they became the template that I wanted to use. I was like, that's the way I want my family to be. That's the dynamic I want in my family. And they actually had 2 sets of twins, and so I felt pretty honored and blessed that we had twins. I was like, oh man, it's really coming together. They're just they were just a huge blessing. My whole experience in the foster system is probably unique in that, one, I was with the same family throughout my time in the system. And it was just all really positive and life-giving.
That is unique, because you don't hear that story very often. Now, one of the unique pieces that you had shared with me is that the family that you were placed with were not unknown to you.
Yeah.
They had actually had some relationship with your biological parents in the past, but then they themselves had had this encounter with Jesus. And so it wasn't for you as though you were going into a totally unknown environment. Can you explain a little bit of how that transition felt for you?
It's funny that you talk about that because I never really thought of it being a unique thing at the time. It was just, I think, because my whole world was just turned upside down, I think it probably made the adjustment a little easier as I look back on it. But I remember knowing that what was happening was good and it was going to be good for me, but I didn't want it to happen. I remember thinking, I remember driving to their house and just imagining a sign above the road that said, "Welcome to your personal hell." And thinking like, yes, this is just going to be terrible. Like, what is going on? Why is this happening to me? So I know now that it was all a part of the Lord's plan for me and for my life and how good it really was. But I remember early on not wanting to be there and trying to devise ways that I could get out of that situation. And I even remember looking up like boarding schools on the East Coast and asking the question like, could you just send me here? Because I didn't believe that anybody would actually want me. I didn't believe that I was worth having in anybody's life at that time. And that was actually something I struggled even in when my wife and I started dating. Like, I'm going to ruin this person's life. She should stay far away from me. So
let me just maybe key in on that for a moment, because I wouldn't say that's entirely unique to kids who enter into the foster system or adoption, right? It happens, I think, in your typical family as well, but it is certainly very common in that environment. And I think often what people view, like if you were to ask me the question, if I was your foster family, hey, could I go live over here on the East Coast, right, at this boarding school? Could you just send me there? My tendency would be to interpret that as you don't want to be here, right? You don't like me, or you don't like this environment. But what you're really saying is that what was happening internally is you didn't believe you were worth people investing in, that you were going to ruin this family like you had ruined your other family, that there was this unhealthy sense of ownership or blame that you were carrying around with you. Is that right?
yeah, that's absolutely right.
I think that's important, especially for people involved with foster care and especially involved with older children, to recognize that what often may present itself, even as anger or defiance or rebellion, or even just questions, has very little to do with you as the foster parent and more to do with their view of themselves. And if you could believe that, right, then you could probably love better without being personally offended.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's good. That makes a lot of sense.
So, but they stuck with it. They said, nope,
Yeah.
You're here, you're with us, we're not sending you away. How long did it take for you to finally begin to believe that what had happened in your biological home was not your fault? And that your identity was not tied up in that situation?
Honestly, that took a long time and a lot of work, and I didn't even feel like I was fully free of that till the year before we actually moved to Homer. I did Fresh Start with my wife here in Wasilla. And she had really wanted to do it for a long time, and I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, and when we decided to go to Homer, so we could go to ABI, I was like, all right, well, maybe I'll go and do this with you because then we can come into this situation and I'll have cleaned myself up a little bit, and I can not have to work so hard on me, and I can just focus on studying and I honestly we did a small group. I did a small group with some other men. Ray Otto led it. I'm still like really grateful for him and the encouragement he gave me during that time. And I remember going into that small group setting thinking, the Lord might use me in somebody's life in here. And like, I don't actually have much that I need to work on. And my idea of forgiveness up until that point in my life was, okay, I've said I forgive you in my mind and my heart. And now I'm just going to stuff all these feelings down and try to never think about them again. And it was my week to share. And all that whole week leading up to that, I didn't actually go through the process book. And so for the 30 minutes before the small group started, I was out in the van frantically writing down my answers. And I remember going in to share and thinking, okay, I'll just be able to talk through this really quickly and be done with it. And I just was wrecked and cried and was felt just like this burden just coming off of me as I was talking through that with these guys. And I had gotten to that last page, that release page, and I didn't fill it out. And I remember one of the guys in the group, the guy actually on the first day was like, oh, I bet the Lord will use me to help this guy because he's messed up. He put his hand on my shoulder and he's like, I don't think you've actually released anything yet, and you should do that. And just like, just everything just started coming out, and I was like, yeah. And Ray was like, I want you to you have to share again next week, and he made me do it all over again. And so, over the week I ignored doing it and did it at the last minute again, but I finished it this time and was able to like share like confidently and like yeah, I've really released this. And it was at that time I really began to let those things go and really truly release those things. And then going to ABI and Nate Steele, he taught Christian living at that time, and it was like fresh start on steroids, and it made me dive into those things even deeper and figured out that now that I've released this, I have to go back and rebuild and figure out my gifts and strengths that the Lord has given me and what my identity is and who God has actually made me to be. Yeah. And I was able to build off of that. And then getting the opportunity to teach later, like it didn't matter what class that I taught. I was like, you guys need to know who you are. You need to figure out your identity. And we're going to spend a good portion of time just working on identity first. And then we'll dive more into God's word. And that's all rooted in God's word, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've just got a few minutes left here. But I want to revisit a conversation you and I had. We were just on a rafting trip here last week and doing some fly fishing, which is a great place to talk and talk about life. And for me, as an adoptive parent, as someone who's been involved in foster care, and as someone who has adopted children in my family, we started talking a little bit about forever family, right? This language that's used in foster care and adoption, and even for us as a church, the Heart Gallery and these kids who are about to age out of the system, and yet have not been adopted into a family. And I didn't realize until that conversation that you and I had, you had actually never been adopted by the foster family that you were with the whole time. But as soon as you described it to me, it immediately made sense as to why not, because of my own experience in my family. And so I want to just spend a moment maybe talking a little bit about that, but could you describe that scenario and sort of how that decision was made to not take the next step to legal adoption?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember the day actually very well. My foster mom showed up to school. They have a biological daughter who I got very close to. Like, she was a huge support. She's actually the first person who said, I think God wants you to be a pastor someday. And didn't feel worthy of that, but it was like this thing in my heart ever since I was like, that's something I want to do someday.
Interesting.
I believe that the Lord is calling me to do that. Anyway, we were in choir class. Believe it or not, I was in choir. But
It's good to know.
My choir teacher was a super sweet lady. She let me participate, and when we would go places, she'd just lip sing, okay? Yes.
Milli Vanilli.
Yeah. So, my foster mom showed up right at the end of choir class, and she told me, the state has full custody of you, and you're with us. You can stay with us, forever until you graduate, and you're ours. And I just I didn't fully understand or comprehend, but my foster mom was super excited and happy. And I remember my foster sister, Rachel, just jumping up and down and screaming, and she was like super giddy. And I was like, why would anybody be that excited to have me around, And shortly after that, my foster parents, they asked me, would you like us to adopt you? We would, we will, we would be happy to. We love you. Like, no matter what you choose, like, we're forever your family. Yeah. And I was like, no, like, you don't need to do that. Like, I know that you love me. I know you care about me, but like, we don't have to do that. And it really just came back to feeling like I'm not worthy of something like that. I'm not worthy of that kind of love and affection.
Yeah, what really clicked for me, because it's a question I've wrestled with, even in relationship to my own sister, and is that is potentially too much pressure, right? To put on a teenager in general, and then in particular someone who is in the position that you're in. And so what you were describing is, I think my reason for saying no, that's not necessary, was more I didn't want to be a burden to, and that maybe if we ask the question in this way, we want to adopt you, would you allow us to do that? Might be an easier question for someone at that season to answer.
I think that would be a much easier, better way to ask a teenager or a kid who's in that situation, and not to fault my foster parents for that. No. They had never been in that situation before either, so they're figuring it out, and and have the best of intentions.
Yeah, I think from a foster parent's perspective, I'm trying to honor you. I wouldn't want to force anything on you, and yet at the same time, there is something significant about knowing that we want this, right? Would you allow this? That takes some of the pressure off, but also provides you this network of support that extends beyond aging out of the system or moving out of the house or those kinds of things, that there's an extra layer of bond that is created there, a sense of responsibility to one another, which we don't have time to get into all of right now, but just even today, as we were talking earlier, and you describing, once I left for college, I realized I had left all of my circles of support behind, and there wasn't anything to anchor me back to those things. And that's really the question we're asking as a church, is how do we create those circles of support that go all the way into adulthood, right, for kids and for families, that extend beyond this brief interaction that we have now, whether it's through OCS or whether it's through agencies like the Heart Gallery or Beacon Hill, Safe Families. And so, hey, we're out of time, but man, I totally appreciate your willingness to share your story with us. I know it's going to be impactful for people who are listening, and glad you guys are on the team, man.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
So there you go. That's the time we have for today. You can like, subscribe, share, all those sorts of things, but we're going to try and consistently bring content every month to you on these kinds of topics and have guests from time to time. And so, hey, that's all the time we have for now, but I just want to say thanks for tuning in. Grace and peace to you. We'll see you next time.